The sound of a gunshot echoes through the mansion. Blood pools around Richard Thornton's designer suit as his new bride stands over him, weapon still warm in her grasp. 3 weeks earlier, she had been walking down the aisle in a $50,000 gown. Now she was facing life in prison. What would you do if you discovered your perfect marriage was built on murder? Welcome back to True Crime Hunter, where we explore the shocking cases that remind us how fragile trust can be. If you've ever wondered how well you really know someone, hit subscribe now and join our community of truth seekers. Today's story begins with a fairy tale wedding between an art curator and a real estate tycoon worth $200 million. It ends with a corpse, a conspiracy, and a corrupted empire crumbling to dust. But this isn't just about wealth and betrayal. It's about how a single moment of curiosity, finding a stranger's wallet in a parking lot, can shatter the illusion of perfection. Olivia Mercer thought she knew the man she married. She believed in Richard Thornton's charitable work, his business acumen, his promises of forever. She never imagined that beneath his polished exterior lurked a man willing to bury bodies to protect his fortune. As we examine the case that became known as the Honeymoon Homicide, ask yourself, how many red flags do we miss when we're blinded by love? How many secrets hide behind the smiles of those closest to us? The evidence was there all along, hidden in plain view, waiting for someone to notice. This is the story of how a bride's chance discovery led to the downfall of a corrupt empire and the death of the man who built it. Olivia Mercer wasn't born into wealth. The daughter of a police officer and a high school teacher, she worked her way through college before landing a position at the prestigious Harrington Gallery in Manhattan. By 32, she had curated exhibitions that attracted celebrities and art collectors from across the globe. Richard Thornton's path to success followed a different trajectory. Inheriting $50,000 from his grandfather at 25, he leveraged that modest sum into a real estate empire worth $200 million. Thornton Properties dominated the Connecticut skyline, with luxury developments that promised exclusivity and elegance. They met at a charity auction where Olivia had organized the art collection. Richard outbid everyone for a painting she had personally recommended. Their courtship lasted 11 months before he proposed on a private yacht off the coast of Monaco. The wedding of Richard Thornton and Olivia Mercer united two worlds, reported the society pages. The business titan and the artistic visionary created a celebration that merged sophistication with authentic emotion. 300 guests witnessed their vows at Lakeside Manor. Politicians, business leaders, and cultural icons raised champagne flutes to toast what seemed like a perfect match. The bride wore custom Vera Wang. The groom gifted her a necklace worth more than most people's homes. Their honeymoon in the Maldives featured on the cover of Travel Elite magazine. Photos showed them snorkeling in crystal waters, dining on private beaches, and watching sunsets from their overwater bungalow. To the public, they embodied the American dream: success, beauty, and apparent devotion. Richard's charitable foundation funded arts education in underprivileged schools, programs Olivia helped design. They appeared on lists of power couples to watch and most influential under fee. But beneath the surface of every perfect life, shadows can hide. The same hands that signed charitable donations also approved bribes. The same lips that spoke wedding vows also ordered a man's disappearance. And Olivia, who spent her career studying the details of masterpieces, missed the brushstrokes of deception in her own home, until a discarded wallet revealed the canvas of corruption her husband had painted. 3 weeks after returning from their honeymoon, Olivia visited the upscale Westlake shopping center. Their first dinner party as a married couple was scheduled for that evening, an intimate gathering of Richard's closest business associates and their spouses. The afternoon sun beat down on the asphalt as Olivia loaded grocery bags into her Range Rover. Gourmet cheeses, imported wines, fresh flowers, all the elements for a perfect evening. As she placed the last bag in her vehicle, something caught her eye: a worn leather wallet lying in the adjacent parking space. Most people would have walked away. Some might have turned it into security without opening it. But Olivia, raised by a father who preached integrity above all else, picked it up with the intention of finding its owner. Inside, she found $340 in cash, several credit cards, and a driver's license belonging to Victor Ramirez. Nothing unusual for a standard wallet, But as she checked for contact information, her fingers discovered something tucked behind the credit cards, a photograph. The image showed Richard, her husband, with his arm around a young woman Olivia had never seen before. They stood in front of a rustic cabin, looking comfortable and intimate. The date stamp in the corner read May 15th, exactly when Richard had told her he was in Seattle closing a business deal. Her heart racing, Olivia continued searching the wallet. Behind another compartment, she found a folded note written in handwriting she recognized immediately. Alicia, the transfer is complete. $250K as agreed. No one will ever know about Westlake Heights. Destroy this after reading. R. Westlake Heights. Richard's newest luxury condominium project, the one that had faced fierce opposition from environmental groups before mysteriously receiving rapid approval from the city council. Sitting in her car, Olivia faced a choice. Confront Richard immediately, or investigate further. The woman who had walked down the aisle a month ago would have trusted her husband without question. But something about the photograph, the note, and the timing felt wrong. Have you ever found something that made you question everything you thought you knew? That single moment when certainty crumbles and doubt floods in? For Olivia, that moment came in a parking lot with a stranger's wallet in her hands. She started the engine and drove home, the wallet hidden in her purse. A decision that would ultimately expose corruption, reveal murder, and end her marriage in bloodshed. That evening, as Olivia arranged flowers and chilled champagne, her mind raced with questions. Who was Victor Ramirez? What was his connection to Richard? And who was the woman in the photograph? Between tasks, she conducted quick searches on her phone. Victor Ramirez worked as a city inspector for Westlake's Building and Safety Department. His LinkedIn profile showed a 15-year career with consistently positive reviews. Until recently. The dinner party began at 8 p.m. Crystal glasses clinked as Richard charmed their guests, mostly business associates and their spouses. Olivia maintained her composure, playing the role of perfect hostess while studying her husband's interactions with new awareness. To continued successful partnerships, toasted Councilman Gregory Walsh, exchanging a knowing glance with Richard, the same councilman who had voted to approve the Westlake Heights project despite environmental concerns. After the guests departed, Olivia casually mentioned finding a wallet. Richard's reaction was subtle but revealing, a momentary stiffening of his shoulders before suggesting she turn it in to the police. The ID says Victor Ramirez. Does that name sound familiar? She asked. No, should it? Richard replied, but Olivia noticed the slight twitch in his left eye, a tell she'd observed whenever he lied about small things in the past. The following morning, Olivia called in sick to her consulting job and drove to the address on Ramirez's license. The modest apartment building in a working-class neighborhood seemed disconnected from Richard's wealthy circle. A neighbor informed her that Ramirez had moved out suddenly 2 weeks earlier, mentioning a job opportunity in Arizona. The timing aligned perfectly with Olivia's wedding. Over the next 7 days, she became a detective in her own home. While Richard slept, she accessed his home office, discovering financial records showing multiple payments to shell companies with vague names like Westlake Consulting and Heights Development Partners. In his golf bag, she found a burner phone with text messages to someone named A discussing keeping VR quiet and making sure he stays gone. Most disturbing was a hidden folder on Richard's laptop containing surveillance photos of Victor Ramirez, along with a woman named Alicia Vega, the same woman from the wallet photo who worked as a paralegal at the city attorney's office. Public records revealed that Alicia had been instrumental in fast-tracking permits for Westlake Heights. The environmental impact study for the project had been mysteriously altered, removing concerns about contaminated groundwater that could potentially harm thousands of residents. The pieces formed a horrifying mosaic. Richard had bribed officials to approve a dangerous development project, and Victor Ramirez had somehow threatened that scheme. This investigation is about to take a deadly turn. Like this video now if you think Olivia should go to the police with what she's discovered so far. But for Olivia, the question wasn't just about justice. It was personal. The man she had married, the man she had planned to build a life with, was not who he claimed to be. And she needed to know exactly how deep the corruption went. Thornton Properties presented itself as the gold standard in luxury development. Their marketing materials showcased sustainable buildings, community spaces, and charitable initiatives. Richard's public persona, the philanthropist who donated millions to environmental causes, masked a business built on corruption. Westlake Heights wasn't just another luxury condominium project. It represented $50 million in potential profit, Richard's most ambitious venture yet. The land had previously housed Chemtech Industries, a manufacturing plant that closed in 1992 after multiple EPA violations. Olivia discovered the original environmental assessment for the property, which clearly indicated dangerous levels of toxic chemicals in the soil and groundwater. Building residential units there would expose inhabitants to carcinogens and potentially contaminate the surrounding area's water supply. Yet the final report submitted to the city council showed no such concerns. The difference? A $250,000 payment to Alicia Vega, who used her position in the city attorney's office to substitute falsified documents for the genuine assessment. The bribery network extended beyond Alicia. Councilman Walsh received a consulting fee of $175,000 through a shell company. The planning commissioner's brother was given an executive position at Thornton Properties with a six-figure salary despite having no relevant experience. Victor Ramirez, the city inspector whose wallet started this investigation, had initially refused to approve the project. His integrity became an obstacle, until Richard offered him $100,000 to look the other way. Based on the text messages Olivia found, Ramirez eventually wanted more money to keep quiet about the toxic waste cover-up. While Richard accepted awards for corporate responsibility, he knowingly planned to build homes where families would be exposed to chemicals linked to cancer, birth defects, and neurological disorders. The projected medical costs for future residents would run into millions, but those wouldn't appear until years after he'd collected his profits. But the most dangerous predators aren't those who hide in the shadows. They're the ones who stand in the spotlight, accepting applause while their victims remain unaware of the threat. For Olivia, the revelation wasn't just about criminal activity. It was about recognizing that the man she married valued profit over human lives, including, potentially, her own. 2 weeks after finding the wallet, Olivia had compiled enough evidence to destroy Richard's empire. Financial records, altered documents, text messages, a comprehensive case revealing corruption at every level of the Westlake Heights project. She chose to confront him in his home office, a room designed to impress with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the estate's manicured gardens, the space where he'd signed the documents that would have endangered countless families. "We need to talk about Victor Ramirez," she said, placing the wallet on his desk. Richard's expression shifted, subtle at first, then dramatic. The transformation was chilling. His eyes, once warm when looking at her, turned cold and calculating. His posture stiffened, shoulders squaring as if preparing for combat rather than conversation. "You've been going through my things," he said, voice eerily calm. "I know about the bribes, the falsified environmental reports, the toxic waste at Westlake Heights." Olivia placed the evidence on his desk, one document at a time. "People would have gotten sick. Children would have gotten sick." "You have no idea what you've stumbled into," he told her. "This goes beyond me, beyond Westlake. There are powerful people involved who won't hesitate to protect their interests." When Olivia threatened to go to the authorities, Richard's facade completely collapsed. He grabbed her arm with enough force to leave bruises, his wedding ring digging into her skin. "Nobody would believe you over me," he warned. "I own half the police department in this town. The other half won't risk their pensions to help you." That night, while Richard slept, Olivia contacted her college roommate, Natalie Winters, now an investigative journalist for the Boston Globe. They had remained close over the years, with Natalie even serving as a bridesmaid at the wedding. "I need your help," Olivia whispered into her phone from the bathroom, water running to mask her voice. "And I need something that can record a conversation without being detected." The next day, Natalie provided her with a recording device disguised as a bracelet charm. Olivia copied all the evidence onto encrypted drives and arranged to meet with a prosecutor from outside the county, someone beyond Richard's influence. What would you risk to expose the truth? Your safety? Your marriage? Your life? For Olivia, the answer became clear when she realized the man she had married was willing to poison children for profit. She didn't know that Richard had installed tracking software on her phone, monitoring her every message, her every move. She didn't know he was already planning to silence her. Permanently, when Olivia returned from what she claimed was a shopping trip, actually a meeting with a private investigator, the house seemed unusually quiet. No staff greeted her. No music played from the whole home audio system Richard had installed. She entered the foyer, shopping bags in hand as cover for her absence. The click of the front door closing behind her echoed through the marble entryway. "We need to talk about your recent activities," Richard's voice came from the living room. He sat in his leather armchair, flanked by two men Olivia had never seen before. Both wore expensive suits that failed to conceal their muscular builds. One blocked the doorway to the kitchen, the other stood near the staircase. "Who are these men?" Olivia asked, her hand instinctively touching the charm bracelet on her wrist. "Insurance," Richard replied. "You've been quite busy, meeting with Natalie, copying my files, contacting the prosecutor's office." He gestured to a laptop showing her location history and message logs. The tracking software had revealed everything. "Your father taught you well about investigation," Richard said, "but he should have taught you more about self-preservation." What followed was a confession delivered with cold precision. Richard detailed how Westlake Heights would generate $50 million in profit, how the land had been purchased at a fraction of its value because of the toxic waste contamination, how bribes had secured approvals that should never have been granted. "Victor Ramirez became a problem," Richard explained. "He got greedy, wanted to renegotiate after the initial payment, threatened to expose everything." "What did you do to him?" Olivia asked, though she already suspected the answer. "I solved the problem permanently," Richard replied. "Accidents happen to greedy people. The cabin in the photo, that's where he's buried, 6 feet under the foundation." One of the men shifted uncomfortably at this explicit confession of murder. "And now you've become a problem too," Richard continued, standing up. "My beautiful, sophisticated wife, who couldn't mind her own business." "Every word you just said has been recorded," Olivia announced, showing the charm bracelet. "Confessing to murder, bribery, fraud, all of it." Richard lunged toward her. In the chaos that followed, one of his associates, panicking about being recorded confessing to involvement in murder, pulled a gun. The weapon discharged during the struggle, falling to the floor. In that moment, Olivia had to make a choice that would change her life forever. She grabbed the gun and fired. The headlines were sensational. "Newlywed heiress murders millionaire husband." The prosecution painted Olivia as a gold digger who eliminated her husband to gain control of his fortune. They pointed to the gunshot residue on her hands, the inheritance she stood to receive, and her suspicious investigation into his business affairs. What they couldn't explain away was the recording. Richard's confession, captured on Olivia's bracelet, became the centerpiece of her defense. The audio clearly documented his admission to murdering Victor Ramirez and his threats against Olivia's life. The two associates, facing accessory charges, quickly turned state's witnesses in exchange for reduced sentences. "My client acted in self-defense after discovering her husband had committed murder and was planning to silence her permanently," her attorney argued. "The evidence shows a pattern of corruption, violence, and intimidation that left Mrs. Thornton in fear for her life." After a 3-week trial that captivated the nation, the jury deliberated for just 6 hours before returning a verdict. Not guilty on all charges. But the story didn't end with Olivia's acquittal. The evidence she gathered triggered investigations into every aspect of Thornton Properties and its connections to local government. Councilman Walsh resigned in disgrace before being indicted on corruption charges. The planning commissioner faced multiple counts of accepting bribes. Alicia Vega, the paralegal who had altered the environmental reports, provided crucial testimony about the entire scheme in exchange for immunity. Following directions from the recording, investigators located Victor Ramirez's body buried beneath the cabin foundation, exactly where Richard had boasted about hiding it. Forensic evidence confirmed he had been murdered shortly before Olivia's wedding. The Westlake Heights project was permanently halted. Environmental experts began the long process of decontaminating the land that Richard had planned to cover with family homes. If this story shocked you, make sure you comment below with what you would have done in Olivia's position. Would you have confronted your spouse, gone directly to the authorities, or handled it differently? For the families of those affected by the corruption, justice came too late for Victor Ramirez. But for countless potential victims who would have lived in toxic homes, Olivia's discovery of a simple wallet in a parking lot may have saved their lives. 5 years after the trial that captivated America, Olivia Mercer Thornton sits in the CEO office of what was once her husband's corrupt empire. As Richard's legal heir, she inherited control of Thornton Properties and transformed it completely. The company now specializes in affordable housing with strict environmental standards, explains business reporter Melissa Chen. Every project undergoes independent testing and transparency measures that exceed industry requirements. The media dubbed the case the Honeymoon Homicide, focusing on the sensational elements: a beautiful bride, a wealthy husband with hidden crimes, and a chance discovery that changed everything. True crime documentaries, podcasts, and books have analyzed every aspect of the case. Psychologists discuss the warning signs Olivia missed. Legal experts debate the self-defense ruling. Environmental activists point to the case when advocating for stricter oversight of development projects. But for Olivia, who rarely gives interviews, the story is deeply personal. "I didn't set out to expose corruption or solve a murder," she told the Boston Globe in her only public statement. "I simply found a wallet and followed where the evidence led me. Sometimes the smallest moments can completely alter your life's direction." That wallet, now preserved in police evidence, represents how seemingly insignificant discoveries can reveal life-altering truths. A discarded item in a parking lot exposed corruption that reached the highest levels of local government and prevented an environmental disaster that would have affected generations. For more stories that expose corruption and crime in unexpected places, subscribe now and hit the notification bell. Our channel brings you cases that remind us to question, investigate, and stand for truth, even when the cost is high. Next week on True Crime Hunter. A respected surgeon with a perfect record suddenly loses 5 patients in 1 month. When a nurse notices a pattern in the medication logs, she risks everything to investigate. Was it a tragic coincidence, or had a healer become something much more dangerous? Join us for The Healing Hands That Harmed, a story of medicine, murder, and the courage to speak up when lives are at stake.